Do I need any special training or anything?
Neville, you're not Pierce Brosnan.
Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, a brand new series next Sunday at 9 on BBC One.
I'm pushing an elephant up the stairs. I'm tossing up punchlines that were never there. Over my shoulder.
I like the idea of taking a song and breaking it down and looking at it from a different perspective.
I'm breaking through, I'm bending spoons, I'm keeping flowers in full bloom. I'm looking for answers from the great, answers from the great, answers.
Find a different perspective at BBC Radio 2.
Here on BBC One now, Hugh Edwards with the news.
Starting this week, there'll be armed guards on some British flights. Like America's Sky Marshals, they're trained to prevent terrorist attacks. After Iran's earthquake, the task of caring for thousands left homeless. In football, Manchester United extend their lead at the top.
If you weren't such a fool, you'd know that one could be decent even when one is wrong. It was wrong of me to go on all that time with her. It was a deathly process.
One of Britain's finest actors, Sir Alan Bates, has died. Good evening. Armed guards will be travelling on some British flights starting this week to try to prevent terrorist attacks. The move has been under consideration by ministers for several months. The BBC was told tonight that the air marshals are being deployed in response to the heightened alert announced by the Americans a few days ago. The British Guards will be used on a limited number of flights, as Daniel Bircher now reports.
Air marshals being trained in the United States. They're commonplace on flights there, especially after the terrorist attacks on New York and Washington. In Britain, there has been some resistance, but the government announced last year that specially armed police officers were being trained. It's never said when or how they'd be deployed. What is new in today's development is that ministers say they are prepared to use marshals on some transatlantic flights, and that's worrying pilots who've long been opposed to anyone carrying weapons on their aircraft.
Our main concern is that guns and aircraft don't mix. They shouldn't be on the aircraft in the first place. If they are going to be on, then we believe that the pilot should know they're on, that the pilot should remain in command, and that the people that join the aircraft, the marshals, are properly trained and have weapons that are appropriate for a pressurised cabin.
The government is reviewing safety in response to heightened terrorist fears in the United States. Security levels there at their highest since September the 11th 2 years ago. Ministers say Sky Marshals will be used where appropriate. Changes are being made in the air and on the ground for UK airlines operating in America. In a statement, the Home Secretary, David Blunkett, said, "What we are proposing is a proportionate and appropriate level of response at a time when the threat to both our countries and around the world remains real and serious." The measures announced today apply only to British flights to and from the United States. Home Office sources have told the BBC tonight they expect the first of the armed Sky Marshals to be on board some aircraft within the next week. Daniel Bircher, BBC News, Heathrow Airport.
And we can talk to our Home Affairs correspondent, Margaret Gilmore, who's also at Heathrow Airport. Margaret, we know that this policy has been under consideration for some time. What other details do you have?
Well, I know, Hugh, that they've been trained for the last year. These are people with a military or a police background. They've been trained by Metropolitan Police officers here in London, and I've been told tonight that they will start work either tomorrow or Tuesday. Now, this is under pressure from America. The Americans are very worried about the possibility of hijackings. So we're not talking about armed air marshals on your run-of-the-mill domestic flight. We're talking about these marshals on a very small number of transatlantic flights, and of course we won't know which ones because they will be disguised as fellow passengers.
We've already heard in the report there about some of the pilots' concerns. What are the other possible drawbacks?
Well, I think the airlines themselves are very concerned. As soon as America went on this heightened alert, they have been in negotiation with the government. It's with great reluctance that they've agreed to the measure. They do understand that it is there to instill fear in the potential terrorist who doesn't know which flights they'll be on, and to a measure give some kind of reassurance to the travelling public.
Margaret at Heathrow, thank you. And earlier today, the Foreign Office updated its travel advice to Saudi Arabia, warning that terrorists could be in the final stages of preparing an attack there. It says travellers should only go to Saudi Arabia if it's essential. Relief workers in Iran are now focusing on the needs of tens of thousands of people left homeless by the earthquake. Rescue teams have spent a third day searching for bodies, but they say it's unlikely that more people will be found alive. The earthquake struck the ancient city of Bam on Friday. The Iranian government says that at least 20,000 people have died. More than 30,000 others have been injured and 100,000 people are homeless. From Bam, this report by Jim Muir.
Day 3 of this disaster, and all over Bam the same grim scenes. Bulldozers moving in to clear the heavy debris, then relief workers and relatives moving in to finish the job with their bare hands. If there were hopes of finding survivors, they faded as body after body was pulled from the rubble. International rescue experts like these, brought in to help find the living, have found themselves digging up the dead.
At the moment, unfortunately, because of the construction of this type of building, it's very unlikely that we're going to find anyone alive. It's going to be a body retrieval.
So many bodies are piling up now that they're having to be interred in mass graves like these at the local cemetery. Buried first in the wreckage of their own homes, exhumed, now buried again with precious little dignity. The sheer scale of the devastation, vast areas of densely populated housing demolished as people slept, explains just why it is that so many have died. As for the injured, who were rescued in the early hours of the disaster, many were evacuated by air to Tehran. They included a British tourist who arrived on holiday in Bam on Christmas Day.
I woke, the room was shaking, bouncing up and down, and my friend Michael was grabbing my feet, pulling me forward, and just screaming, "Get out, get out." He kicked the door out, and then he pushed me through, and we came out into the open, and it was just silence. And we looked around us, and the hotel had disappeared.
In the heart of Bam, the ancient citadel, the world's biggest mud brick structure, was transformed into an ocean of dust and rubble. It's thought that hundreds may now still lie buried under the ruins. Those who emerged unscathed are now sleeping outside the remaining buildings which still stand. They fear an aftershock could bury them too.
So it's a third long, cold night for the survivors of Bam. With hopes now fading that more people may be found alive under the rubble, attention is turning increasingly to their plight and what can be done to help them rebuild their lives.
Many of them have lost loved ones as well as their homes and possessions. Nothing that can be done to help them now can change that massive tragedy. Jim Muir, BBC News, in Bam, southeast Iran.
And we can talk to Jim, who's in Bam tonight. Jim, the task facing the relief workers is horribly